I could remember this one almost tormenting, recurring dream. I was outside of this big city, and the walls were made of glass and the gates were locked completely. And I just remember in a dream being desperate, like I just need to get in. I want to get in. And I would walk as far as I could along the perimeter of the city, wanting to get inside and just being desperate, trying to find a way, like a hole to push my hands and just to try. I was so desperate and I just couldn't get through. And I really didn't understand it until I grew older. And when I actually got saved, that's when I kind of made sense of it. I'm Ashley L, and this is my salvation story. Growing up, I was always a little God girl. I always liked talking about God. I liked talking to God. For as long as I can remember, I would just have these conversations with God like he was just another person sitting in the room with me. And this is how I prayed. And I don't remember when it first started, but I learned that, God is my friend. God wants to be my friend, and I should just talk to him like a friend. And so, one of the earliest conversations I can remember was me sitting on a staircase and just going like, "Hey God, how are you today?" And just told him a whole story about what happened to me at school. I was just a little girl, and in that moment God spoke back to me, and I just knew the thought that came was not from myself. And that has been my prayer life ever since, having those intimate conversations with God, hearing from him. And not only that, he would be listening to me. I remember just laying in bed and just having another one of those conversations with God. And every time I fall asleep without ending the conversation and telling God that I'm going to bed, good night, he would call me. I would hear my name and I would wake up. And I would continue the conversation. And if I fall asleep, it would happen again. And I was just so amazed that God was listening to me, that if I fell asleep, he would wake me up. It was just so touching to know that God is listening to me. He is listening to me. And not only that, but he spoke to me in various ways. One of the ways that I can remember is dreams. I can remember a very powerful recurring dream. Of course, I didn't understand it at the time, but it was me standing outside of this big gated city, and the walls were made of glass. That's one of the things I could remember, and the gates were locked. And I could remember just walking around the perimeter of the building and just wanting to get inside and just being desperate, searching for a way to climb in, searching for a way to break through the wall. And I just couldn't get through. I really didn't understand it until I got saved and I grew older. And it was just really fascinating the way God was even communicating with me even before that time. And not only dreams, but just direct talking, direct responses, just powerful thoughts. I can remember, leading up to me just making a profession of faith. God literally spoke to me like, you need to get involved in my church. I was at mass at the Catholic Church, 11 years old, and I had no idea what it meant, but I assumed, which turns out to be a pattern in my life. Yeah, so I thought, oh, you want me to get involved in church? So I started to do everything I could. Acolyte training, I started to help with collecting offering, anything I could. I did it. And then I remember my mom's friend came home one day and she was just telling her about this church she went to, Victory Church, how the people worshipped and just the messages and how it was so different. And my mother was like, wow, you know what? I will send the children. I remember standing up there thinking, God, I do not want to go to that church. I don't know the church. I don't know anything about it. I am not going. Come Sunday morning, I was going to church and I remember being at the door of the church and the presence of God just hit me and I just stood still and I was scared. I just knew God was there and God could speak. I got so scared. I thought he was going to tell them that I didn't want to come. I literally thought the chairperson was going to point me out and say, "You didn't want to come to church today." And she was just going to go pointing out people and saying things. I don't know why I thought that, but I just knew the presence of God was there and he could speak and he could move. I was so scared. I was like, "Oh God, please don't tell him I didn't want to come to the church. Oh my God." But I just knew that he was there and he was moving and he could speak. And I've always known him as a God who speaks. I've always known prayer as conversation. And I just remember just in that service when it was time for the altar call, he spoke to me again and he was like, "You raise your hand." And I was just like, "No, nope." I don't know, like the conviction of the Holy Spirit give you that sense of guilt and you just feel like you're taking a walk of shame among the assembly of the holy people. I don't know why, but I was just like, "Nope, I'm not doing that." And literally, when we prayed in church, most of us would put our head down on the chair in front of us and put our hands over it. And so my hands literally started twitching, y'all. It was just like on the chair, and I just was like, "Oh my gosh, what is happening to me?" And then I just knew in that moment it was God doing it because I didn't raise my hand and he really wanted me to raise my hand. So I was like, "Okay, God, I'm gonna raise my hand." And I raised my hand, and I remember when the preacher asked us to come forward, and I was just like, "I don't care with nobody, I'm going." So I took my walk of shame. I was 11. So I walked to the altar call, and they're leading us in a sinner's prayer. And I really, at the time, didn't understand that I was a sinner. I was 11. I thought, I'm just a child, I do silly things, but, I'm a child. Being a sinner was just a new concept to me. So I literally said the prayer like, "God, I don't understand that I'm a sinner, but because it's in the Bible, I believe it's true, but I don't understand." And I remember God just having an amazing way of showing me my sinfulness. For the first time that day when I was at home, I was about to do something that I shouldn't have done, some silly childish thing. And literally for the first time there was a voice going, "Don't do that." And I was just like, "Whoa. Oh my God." I literally turned around. And the only way I can describe it is like, in the movies when they show you the little angel and the little demon on the shoulder, that I literally felt like there was someone just in my ear. "Don't do that." And I did what I wanted anyways. I was like, "Okay, God, you know what? I'm going to do it this time, but I will never do it again." And of course, that didn't happen just like that. And so I began to feel really guilty, and I thought God was mad at me. And, I became scared to pray. So I stopped praying. I stopped praying for that time. I thought, you're being bad. I'm going to fix myself and I'm going to go back and show God, "Look what I did. Hey, I fixed myself, God. See?" It didn't work that way, and it didn't work. So I remember just building, just not spending time with God like I used to. I was just getting so agitated and overwhelmed. Like I was missing God, y'all. I was just missing God, and I was just like, I couldn't take it anymore. I wanted to go pray, but I was scared. So I just run in the room crying, like, "Oh God, please, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, I'm sorry." And in that moment, I felt like he embraced me. I literally felt like he embraced me, and I just got an overwhelming sense of his unfailing love. Like he was not holding that against me. And I was just like, "Whoa, you're so awesome. You're so awesome." And in that moment when I realized how awesome God is, I guess I got a revelation of myself in comparison to him. I was like, "I'm a horrible person. So I kind of got understood that I'm a sinner. And that recurring dream, I had it one more time, and that's when it began to make sense. So I was outside the city, and this time the gate was wide open. Of course, it wasn't until I started to grow and be studying the Bible and reading Revelations and recognizing that heaven, the walls are made of crystal, and that's when I literally saw it in the Bible. Was like, oh, that's the city in the dream. And that's when I realized what was going on. I wanted to get to heaven. I wanted to enter. I wanted to be close to God. And God was close to me. Yet we had that relationship, but I couldn't enter. I couldn't enter until I got saved, until I accepted Him as a Lord. And every time I think about it, like my heart breaks and it rejoices at the same time. In a way, I used to feel kind of rejected because I had a relationship with God and we talked and everything. And then I couldn't get in. I kind of felt sad about it, but then I felt just so like, wow, I was just in awe. Like, even if I wasn't worthy of entering, you were still with me. You were still talking to me. You were still drawing with me. You were showing it to me. I thought, wow. And everything that happened in my life, He was just leading me. He's the one who brought me to that church. He's the one who told me to go to the altar. He has just always been with me. And I was just like, wow, like if people knew you, how could they not serve you? How could they not love you back? And even from that very early age, that I just had an overwhelming desire to just share God with people. Like, you just need to know this God, because if you did, you would love Him. A lot of the work that I spent my time doing, especially in ministry in the church, I've been a member of the church for many years now. Now I am the lead of the discipleship department. And so a lot of my focus have been to help people know who that God is, and just getting people to begin that experience, begin that journey with God, especially children. It means a lot to me to introduce children to God, because of how I grew up and my experience, and I know the resilience and the strength and who I am today. I wouldn't be that person if it wasn't for that relationship. Where would I be if it wasn't for God? Like, literally, I could see so many other broken, and I say other because I was a broken and lost child, but I was in God's hands, and I could see them outside of God, the patterns of destruction and the things that they are engaged in, and I was like, I would be like them. I would be them if it was not for God. And so there's just something burning in me. I just want to reach them, to show them who God is, and to just connect them, get them started. If I could just get them started on that relationship and just getting personal with God, I just know they'll be okay. They'll be okay. And so that's what drives me today, and that's how I'm living for God. Right now, I am doing what I can with what I have to pursue the calling that I know He has revealed to me, in terms of video and media ministry to reach young people. Before I go, I just want to share a little bit more about, how God's revealed that to me. I was having yet another one of those conversations that I have with God about something I saw in a movie. Humans always have these superhero storylines where humans sacrifice themselves for the good of the whole world or whatever. I was like, yeah, somebody died to save the world already. So I was having this whole conversation with God, like, you know what, God, you need to show up on the sets, you need to show them, you need to do something. And He literally was like, why don't you do something about it? And I was just so confused. I didn't understand what He was talking about at the time. I wasn't even able to identify my talents and my passions. I've always been fascinated about video production and cameras. I've always studied camera crews, just look at them and just be fascinated. But if you had asked me what's my passion, what I'm interested in, I wouldn't have been able to tell you. He began to reveal things that I was not even aware about myself. In fact, if you had asked me what I was good at there was a point in time I would have literally said nothing. So that's how broken and inadequate I felt growing up. And the point is, I wasn't aware of this passion for video and this ability for storytelling until God actually revealed it to me. And when it did, I was still averse to the idea because you grew up thinking, Hollywood and arts and all of that are evil and you should stay away from it. And then when I asked him, do you really want me to do this? I remember the next day, and that has been a way God has spoken to me a lot, especially growing up. I ask a question, and the following day, I would see a message answering this very question on TV or on the radio. So I was watching TV, and The Way of the Master came on, and it literally was talking about young people feeling God calling them into Hollywood. I was like, oh my gosh, I got so excited. I really wanted to write them, but I didn't have internet at the time. So I watched the entire credits so that I can get a mailing address. And all I saw at the end was Living Waters Publications, which stood out to me because I thought it was weird, It's a TV show by a publications company. So, but that was significant because what happened was, I prayed and prayed for God to get me the mailing address. And then the following day, I woke up and there was a tract on my ironing board. My mother brought it home. She was complaining that some people brought these bad tracts and they were saying evil things. The tract said the Bible is filled with mistakes. So I thought, that must just be clever wording. Let me see who wrote it. So I turned it around and there it was, Living Waters Publications. So the same people who produced The Way of the Master. And in fact, it was written by one of the hosts. And I was just like, whoa, the mailing address came to find me at my home. Like, so that was one of the powerful conversations where God confirmed and showed me that He's calling me into media ministry. And it's been a long time. It's been a long journey. Things have not exactly gone as planned. I've been struggling to just figure out how to get started, not having the resources, how to use what I have. I'm just doing what I can right now to live out that purpose.